Imagine this: you walk into a room, and without saying a single word, eyes shift toward you. Not because you're the loudest, not because you're the richest, not because you're flashing status, but because there's something in the way you carry yourself. Something small yet magnetic that makes people feel they need to notice you. Most men chase the big gestures, flashy cars, forced confidence, expensive clothes. And yet, it's the tiny habits that separate a man who blends into the background from the man people lean toward. Curious, pulled in by something they can't quite name. Think about the last time you saw a man command attention without effort. Maybe he leaned back when others leaned forward. Maybe he paused before speaking, making silence feel heavy instead of awkward. Maybe he smiled, not a wide, desperate grin, but the kind of calm, half smile that said, "I'm already in control here." These little things aren't tricks. They're signals rooted in psychology that bypass words and speak directly to instinct. People, especially women, respond to them before their rational brain has time to catch up. Here's the brutal truth: attraction isn't built on what you say. It's built on how you're perceived before you open your mouth. That means your micro habits, your posture, your eye contact, your pacing are either making you irresistible or forgettable. A man who fidgets, rushes to fill silence, or looks away too quickly signals nervousness. And nervousness, no matter how kind or genuine you are, gets read as weakness. But a man who holds still, lets the silence hang, or meets someone's gaze a fraction longer than expected, signals something else: certainty. And certainty is rare. Certainty is intoxicating. Psychology calls this non-verbal dominance cues. Women don't consciously think, "Oh, he held eye contact for 2.7 seconds. They just feel the shift in energy. It's why a woman might ignore 10 men who chase her with compliments, then become fixated on the one man who says little, but radiates calm authority through his presence. Now, let's talk tactics. If you want to start radiating this kind of energy, you don't need to reinvent yourself. You need to adjust the little details that build your aura. Next time you're in a conversation, resist the urge to nod excessively. Instead, hold your head still and let the other person earn your nod. That tiny shift tells her subconscious you're not over-eager, you're selective. When you walk into a room, don't rush to find a seat or blend in. Pause. Let your body settle. That pause is a signal, "I belong here." When someone asks you a question, don't fire off the answer instantly. Let a beat of silence pass. That delay doesn't show hesitation, it shows weight. It makes your words land with more force. Here's the trap most men fall into. They mistake over-explaining, over-giving, or over-texting as ways to prove value. But every time you do that, you shrink your presence. You make her feel she's in control of the pace, the silence, the attention. If she pulls back and you chase, you've confirmed her suspicion you need her more than she needs you. That imbalance kills attraction instantly. Instead, the habit that makes you irresistible is the opposite. When she withdraws, you don't chase, you mirror. You let her absence speak louder than your desperation. This flips the script. She expected control, but you took it back without a single argument. Even in something as simple as body language, this holds true. Crossing your arms can make you look closed off, but resting one arm on the chair beside you while leaning back makes you look expansive. Expansive equals confident. Confident equals safe to follow. Safety doesn't mean weak, it means stable. Stability in a world of chaos is magnetic. Women feel it. Men respect it. Strangers remember it. You don't need to be tall, rich, or movie star handsome to pull this off. You need to train your tiny habits until they do the heavy lifting for you. Start with one silence. Tonight, when you're talking to someone, cut your words by 20% and add pauses. Watch how it makes people lean closer. Tomorrow, focus on your walk. Instead of rushing, slow down your pace by 10%. Feel how it changes your mood and how others adjust to match you. These aren't gimmicks. They're psychological levers. And when you pull them consistently, people won't know why they feel drawn to you. They'll just feel it. Now, let me ask you, have you ever noticed how one small habit, like speaking slower or holding eye contact, changed how people treated you? Have you caught yourself chasing attention instead of letting it come to you? And here's the real challenge. What's the one tiny habit you know you need to drop immediately? Because it's killing your presence every time you walk into a room. Most men live their lives trying to convince others to like them. They lean in too much, laugh too quickly, and soften their words so no one feels uncomfortable. But every time you do this, you trade away a piece of your presence. You think you're being agreeable. What you're really doing is erasing yourself. And here's the hard truth. People don't remember the man who bends to fit in. They remember the man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't chase, who doesn't adjust his essence to match the room. Think about a time you were talking to a woman you really wanted. Maybe your palms got sweaty, your words stumbled, and you started compensating by over-explaining, adding unnecessary details just to fill the air. You thought she needed all the proof that you were interesting, but deep down, she wasn't listening to your words, she was watching your energy. She was scanning to see if you were centered, or if her slightest shift could throw you off balance. Every rush to impress was a signal that you were trying to win her approval instead of standing in your own. The tiny habit that flips this script is simple restraint. Restraint in speech, restraint in reaction, restraint in validation. When she teases you, don't scramble for the perfect comeback. Smile slightly, let the silence sit, and then respond when you're ready. That pause tells her your approval doesn't dictate my rhythm. When a friend brags about his success, you don't need to compete or one-up. Instead, nod once, let him enjoy his moment, and watch as people start turning back to you, curious why you're not scrambling for attention like the rest. Restraint is power because it shows you're not running on empty. It shows you have an inner reservoir that doesn't need to be refilled by anyone else. Psychologists call this self-sufficiency signaling. Others call it magnetism. Women simply call it mysterious. And mystery, when combined with stability, is what makes someone irresistible. But restraint is not coldness. This is where most men mess it up. They think being unavailable means being emotionally shut off, never giving affection, never laughing, never showing warmth. That's not power. That's insecurity wrapped in armor. True restraint means you can give warmth without attaching strings. You can laugh without needing others to laugh back. You can compliment without needing one in return. Your giving becomes more powerful precisely because it doesn't come from hunger, it comes from choice. Here's how you can practice this in daily life. When you're texting a woman you're interested in, don't mirror her energy out of fear. If she sends short replies, don't panic and send 3 paragraphs. Match her pace or even slow it down. Let her wonder if you're actually busy. When she delays replying, don't collapse into anxious double texts. Put the phone down. Shift your focus back to your own priorities. That tiny habit, choosing not to chase, creates the tension that makes her check her phone twice, wondering why you haven't folded like the others. In person, the habit of restraint shows up in how you carry your body. Instead of constant movement, learn to be still. Instead of over-explaining, Learn to let your words breathe instead of smiling desperately. Let your face rest in neutrality until something genuinely moves you. Every ounce of restraint you master creates contrast. And contrast is what makes you stand out in a world of men desperate to prove themselves. But let's go even deeper. Restraint doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you build a tiny brick of self-respect. Every time you choose silence over scrambling, you reinforce the belief that your presence is enough. And over time, those bricks stack into a fortress. A man who lives in that fortress doesn't collapse when a woman withdraws. He doesn't break when he's rejected. He doesn't chase validation in every room. Instead, he becomes the man people can't help but move toward, simply because he's immovable. So, ask yourself, how often have you caught yourself talking too much just to fill silence? When was the last time you over-explained in hopes of impressing her? And what would happen if, tonight, you tried the opposite, cut your words in half, slowed your pace, and let silence work for you instead of against you? Here's the thing. Nobody wants to admit most of your habits around attraction weren't built from strength. They were built from fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being overlooked, fear that if you don't prove yourself constantly, you'll disappear in the eyes of the people you want most. That fear leaks out in ways you don't even notice. You check your phone too often, you laugh when nothing's funny, you explain things she didn't even ask about. You fill every silence because you can't stand the idea that she might be bored. But here's the paradox. The very things you do to keep her interest are the exact things that drain it. Picture this, you're sitting across from a woman at dinner. She leans back, tests the silence, maybe glances away. Most men panic here. They jump in with a story, a question, a compliment, anything to fill the gap. But the man who's irresistible doesn't. He takes a slow sip of his drink, rests his gaze calmly, and waits. That wait flips the power dynamic. Instead of you chasing her attention, she feels herself leaning in, suddenly more aware of you. Why? Because you demonstrated that you don't fear the silence. And if you don't fear silence, you don't fear her leaving. That's intoxicating. These small acts of fearlessness are the habits that rewrite the entire dynamic. Another one, how you handle her emotional swings. Some women will withdraw on purpose, not because they don't like you, but because withdrawal is a form of control. It's their way of testing your stability. Do you panic? Do you overcompensate with attention, flowers, gifts, endless, "Are you okay?" texts? If you do, you've just confirmed to her that she can pull your strings anytime she wants. But the man who refuses to be baited simply continues his rhythm. He notices the withdrawal, but doesn't collapse into pursuit. He mirrors. He lets her absence stand, while he remains steady. That steadiness isn't cruelty, it's proof of self-respect. And when she realizes her tactics don't work, she feels something she didn't expect desire. You see, the most magnetic habit of all is not reacting. That doesn't mean ignoring her. It means responding only from choice, never from panic. If she's warm, you're warm. If she's distant, you don't chase, you match her pace and keep living your life. This confuses her at first, because most men crumble under withdrawal. But soon, it intrigues her. She starts to wonder, why can't I shake him? Why does he remain so unshaken by me? That wondering grows into attraction, because attraction lives in curiosity, not in certainty. Let's get tactical. Next time you're texting and she suddenly goes cold, here's your move: do nothing. Not passive-aggressive silence, not waiting with your phone in hand. Real nothing. Put the phone away and go do something valuable. When you return hours later, you respond once calm, direct, and without bringing up her delay. That single act communicates volumes you have a life beyond her. You don't bend to her rhythms, and the more consistently you live this way, the more she feels pulled toward you, because you've proven you're not dependent on her attention. In person, when she tests you with sarcasm or light disrespect, don't defend or argue. That's exactly what she wants, a spike of emotional energy. Instead, smile slightly, lean back, and say something simple like, "That's cute," then move on. You've just refused to let her push you off center. That refusal tells her subconscious this man has boundaries. And boundaries, no matter how subtle, are one of the sexiest things a man can project. Every tiny habit here, holding silence, refusing to chase, staying calm under withdrawal, trains you into someone who cannot be easily shaken. And in a world where most men are constantly swayed by every female mood swing, that makes you rare. Rare equals valuable. Valuable equals irresistible. So let me ask you, have you ever felt that rush of panic when a woman pulled back from you? Did you catch yourself chasing her harder the moment she grew distant? And be honest, how many times have you sabotaged attraction by reacting instead of holding your ground? Here's a truth you won't hear often. Attraction isn't built in the dramatic moments, it's built in the micro decisions you make every day. The little ways you carry yourself, the small things you choose not to do, the moments where you stay centered instead of folding. These are what make you irresistible, because every time you choose control over impulse, you send a message: I don't need your validation to stand tall. And that message is louder than any compliment, louder than any gift, louder than any performance. Think about the men you admire, the ones who seem to draw people in without effort. They're not scrambling, they're not talking over themselves, they're not rushing to win approval. Instead, they move slowly, they hold stillness, they wait for others to come to them. This is what's called gravity behavior. Like gravity, it doesn't chase, it pulls. People orbit around them because they feel grounded in their presence. But here's where most men fail. They think they can fake this by pretending not to care. They think aloofness equals attraction. It doesn't. Pretending not to care is still caring. It's just hiding it under a mask. True gravity comes when you actually believe your value doesn't depend on whether she smiles at your joke, whether she texts you back, or whether she chooses you. That belief gets expressed through tiny, consistent habits. For example, the habit of how you listen. Most men, when talking to a woman, interrupt, over-explain, or throw in Me Too stories to keep the spotlight. But the man with gravity listens fully. He doesn't nod frantically. He doesn't rush to prove he relates. He lets her speak. He observes. And when he does reply, his words land heavier because they're not competing with noise. That kind of listening makes her feel both seen and challenged at the same time. Seen because you're actually present. Challenged because you're not scrambling for her approval. You're choosing what deserves your energy. Another small but powerful habit, the way you take up space. I don't mean puffing your chest out like a cartoon alpha. I mean sitting back, spreading out slightly, not curling yourself inward as if you're apologizing for existing. Most men shrink themselves, especially when they feel nervous. They hunch, they fidget, they fold their arms. Without realizing it, they're broadcasting, I don't belong here. But the man who sits comfortably, who lets his body rest expansively, is broadcasting the opposite. This is my space too, and I don't need permission to claim it. And then there's the habit of pacing your emotions. When something excites you, do you explode with energy right away? When something annoys you, do you snap instantly? These spikes reveal that you're reactive, not centered. Instead, the man with gravity slows his response. He allows emotions to move through him before he chooses how to show them. That self-regulation is magnetic because it signals strength. People trust the man who isn't hijacked by his own moods. Women especially feel safe with him because safety and attraction are more connected than most men realize. Now, let's make this tactical. The next time you walk into a social setting, notice your first instinct. Do you scan the room desperately for someone you know? Do you move quickly toward the corner, phone in hand, pretending to scroll? Catch yourself. Instead, pause near the entrance, take a breath, and let your body adjust before moving. That pause is a statement you're not hiding. You're present. Next, when you're in a conversation, practice slowing down your speech by just 10%. Not robotic, just unhurried. Notice how people lean closer, as if your words matter more. Finally, when you feel the urge to send a long text explaining your feelings or proving your value, stop. Instead, cut it in half. Keep it direct. Watch how much more powerful it feels to leave space instead of filling it. What you're really doing with these habits is teaching people how to treat you. If you constantly rush, chase, and over-explain, you're teaching them you can be bent at will. If you move slowly, stay calm, and respond with restraint, you're teaching them you operate on your own rhythm, and the world craves men with their own rhythm, because most men don't have it. So here's my question to you. Which of these tiny habits, listening fully, taking up space, slowing your pace, do you know you've been neglecting? When was the last time your body language betrayed nervousness instead of confidence? And how different would your relationships feel if you stopped chasing approval and started radiating gravity instead? Most men believe attraction is about what they add. Add more charm, add more compliments, add more effort. But the truth is, attraction is often about what you subtract. You become irresistible not by stacking gimmicks on top of insecurity, but by cutting away the habits that drain your presence, the impulses that betray your neediness, the tiny cracks that reveal desperation. It's not about becoming more, it's about becoming less of what weakens you. Start with your posture. Every time you hunch forward, you're signaling submission. You may think you're being polite, leaning in to show you care, but her subconscious reads it differently. He's smaller than me. He's seeking approval. Now imagine subtracting that one habit. You sit back instead of leaning forward. You breathe slower instead of fidgeting. You plant your feet instead of shifting restlessly. Suddenly, without words, you've removed the signs of weakness that most men leak in every interaction. What's left is stillness, and stillness is power. Next, subtract your verbal clutter. Men sabotage themselves with unnecessary words. They over-explain, they justify, they repeat themselves just to fill the air. But the man who says only what needs to be said is magnetic. Every word carries weight because there are fewer of them. The subtraction of clutter creates presence. Try it the next time you're in conversation. Cut half your words, keep your sentences clean, and watch how people hang on the silence after you finish. That silence is not emptiness, it's tension. And tension is what makes people lean in. Then, subtract your reactions. This is the hardest one. You've been conditioned to react instantly to her moods. She withdraws, you chase. She criticizes, you defend. She tests, you scramble. But every reaction teaches her that she has control. Subtract that impulse. When she pulls back, don't close the gap. When she throws a small jab, don't rush to defend. When she tries to bait you, let it hang unanswered. This doesn't mean coldness. It means you refuse to let her dictate your state. That refusal is irresistible because it's rare. Most men crumble. You don't. Subtraction also applies to your digital habits. Every time you check your phone anxiously, every time you double text, every time you post something hoping she'll notice, you're broadcasting scarcity. Subtract it. Let her messages wait. Send shorter replies. Post because you want to, not because you're hoping for her attention. That single subtraction tells her something she doesn't expect. You're not starving for validation. You're already full, and fullness is what makes her curious, because she wants to know what feeds you that doesn't involve her. Now here's the deeper layer. Subtraction isn't about tactics, it's about identity. The man who subtracts neediness, clutter, and reactivity discovers what's underneath the core self that doesn't bend for anyone. That self is where your true magnetism lives. When a woman senses that man, she can't control him, she can't predict him, and she can't ignore him. And in a world where most men are predictable, controllable, and easy to read, that unpredictability is electric. Let's make this practical. Tonight, when you speak with someone, subtract fillers like, or nervous laughter. Tomorrow, subtract one needy behavior. No checking your phone for her message until you're actually ready to reply. Next time you feel the urge to explain yourself in detail, subtract half of it. Cut your response down to one calm, direct statement. These micro subtractions, practiced daily, build into a presence that feels unshakable. Remember, these women aren't drawn to the man who tries the hardest. They're drawn to the man who feels the least replaceable. And you feel replaceable when you act like every other man, chasing, overgiving, explaining, reacting. You feel irreplaceable when you subtract those habits and let your presence speak without decoration. So tell me, what's the hardest thing for you to subtract right now? Is it the urge to overtext, the habit of over-explaining, or the compulsion to react when she tests you? And deeper than that, are you ready to see what's left of you when you strip away the need to impress? She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.